I like to invite you to go back to when you were 9 years old. For me, it was 22nd of September 1980. A normal Monday morning, getting ready, having breakfast to go to school. My mother was making the tea. She turned on the radio, and the voice on the radio said, at 1:30 a.m., Iraqi forces have attacked Iran. The cup fell from her hand. I stopped chewing, and the rest was 8 years of war and carnage. 4 years later, a classmate of mine volunteered to go to the front lines and never came back. We shared the same first name, but not the same destiny. The last year of war, a Scud missile landed in my father's cousin's house. Their son had a flight the morning after with a scholarship to an Ivy business school in his hand. Sadly, he spent the rest of his life wheelchair-bound with an IV in his arm, paralyzed. 10 years, a decade almost, 8 years to be precise, of war. The whole world was supporting Saddam Hussein. 1 million young men, dead and maimed, but the business of wars was so lucrative that nobody wanted to cut it short. Today, we're not here to talk about coal, cows, consumers, or cars, but the biggest climate culprit that we never talk about, the wars and the destruction and the emissions of the destruction. We are very consumed with the discussions about a barrel of oil, but not about a barrel bomb. And we measure our footprints in our coffee, in our commute, but it seems like some emissions are more equal than others. I'm sure many of you may be familiar with the Keeling curve, which has been tracing the CO2 emissions in the atmosphere for the past, decades, from 1958. There's another chart that we don't plot next to the Keeling curve, and that is the killing curve. Ironically, every time the killing curve goes up, the Keeling curve inflates as well. What do I mean by that? From 1958 till now, our coal consumption as humanity has reduced, but our emissions have gone up. Could there be a Siamese twins there? Could there be a correlation between climate change and another change? What is that other change? From Agent Orange in Vietnam, from Nicaragua, from Chile, from Soviet Union invasion of Afghanistan, the first occupation of Afghanistan, to Libya, to Syria, to Yemen, to Iraq, to Afghanistan. As an example, United States alone in the past 80 years have had 69 military operations, coups d'etats, regime changes around the world. That's once a year. And who is measuring the emissions of these operations? These days, we are reading in the headlines that America is cranking up the heat on Venezuela. But it's not just on Venezuela, it's on the planet. These things started in 1953 with the first coup d'etat in Iran, and then ever since they have followed. So when we call a naval battle group an air carrier from South China Sea to Persian Gulf, like a writing app, then to Caribbean Sea, who's measuring the emissions of all of these, right? For the past 3.5 decades, we've been in what I call a liberal hegemony sauna. Doors locked, heating up, and we're all sweating together. So I'd like to invite you to kindly close your eyes for the next 30 seconds. I will close mine, and you close yours as well. Visualize hundreds of thousands of men airlifted, sent to thousands of kilometers away with all of their military might, all of their helicopters, all of their fighter jets, millions of air sorties, ammunition, ordnance, and the destruction that ensues. field hospitals, supply chains, catering, rotating them back and forth between their homeland and the war zone, and the destruction that ensues through naval ships, helicopters, bombardments, mother of all bombs, massive ordnance penetrator. Now, open your eyes and never close them again, because what is following is not just a headline. We're going to talk about the scars that outlast the headlines, that outlast the fallen soldiers, their grieving parents. If cement and concrete were a nation, they would be the fourth largest emitter on planet Earth after United States, China, India. All of these structures are turned into the biblical scenes of destruction we have been seeing closely in real time on our screens. All concrete, hospitals, schools, bridges, cities, water desalination plants, universities, roads. The embodied carbon in these infrastructure is something we never talk about. When a city is erased from the map, that's 1 second layer of scope 2 of wars, which we never measure. So the key question is, what is happening after that? You see, scope 1, 2, and 3 is not only about supply chains of a table we buy, but scope 1 is the fire, scope 2 is the ash, and scope 3 is the breath after. I consider them as scars that we share collectively, which is, a subject we never talk about. Decades of carbon emissions have gone to these cities to be built, and then just imagine the steel mills, the concrete plants that have to hum again to supply, to rebuild. So operations of destruction, the embodied carbon, and the reconstruction. Today we talk about carbon adjustment, border tax, and mechanism. Yes, we measure every product that is coming from Global South, and we apply 80 euros per ton, something like that, for emissions if they had, high emissions. But what about the carbons we export through our might, through our force? Who's measuring that? What is the price tag for that? We talk about nationally determined contributions. Sounds exciting, sounds novel. But what about internationally undeterred devastation that we take? Today, organizations like Carbon Action Task Force are talking about associating a digital certificate to a single molecule of methane to trace it back to the refinery or the source it's coming from. So how are we so diligent with what's coming in, but oblivion to what's going out? You see, from Khorramshahr to Kabul, from Bentre to Benghazi, from Mosul to Mariupol, this is not about an autocracy or a democracy. This is about us. This is about climate hypocrisy. Nobody has a halo effect in this. And I like the quote from, Andrew Lang, the Scottish literary towering figure, who said, the worst thing when we do in statistics is that when we treat statistics the same way that a drunkard would use a lamppost. In other words, we lean on it rather than looking at the lights that it can shed on what we're talking about. And that's a trap we have to avoid. So there is an elephant in the room, and we've been ignoring it. The statistics at the peacetime measure the global footprint of militaries around the world at 5.5%. Peacetime. Not the drills, not the maneuvers in territorial waters, not the rounds of calibers and magazines fired in trainings, not the destruction you saw, not the sorties, not the fuel jet, not the diesel that the tanks use. not the destruction of those cities and embodied carbon, not the reconstruction of these cities. And the key question is, if we were to add all that up, would a 20 or 25% be a far-fetched figure? Can we answer that? And I think we can. For the past decade, I have been busy writing, advocating, talking about why we need a dashboard. Why do we need a global conflict carbon compass and pricing? And you may say, why now, Ali? Why are you in Surrey today? Because I'm excited. Why? Well, between 2021 and 22, AlphaFold and DeepMind from Google unraveled the mystery of life. They modeled in 3D 200 million protein structures. This is the atlas of life. So if we've been able to address through AI the protein folding mystery and problem, can it not be that we can use AI as well in addressing the mystery of emissions hiding and define those building blocks? Today you have companies like DeepMind, DeepSeek, Alibaba Cloud, Anthropic, ByteDance, OpenAI, and on both sides of the Pacific and in both sides of the planet, you have the capacities and capabilities to use these large language models to create large liability models. So there's no excuse, and that's why I'm very excited today about this. And if we don't address it, somebody from the other side of the planet will do. They have a far less footprint in conventional wars the way we have in our neck of the woods. They may start modeling it. Satellite technology with machine learning today is able to have a clear image of all of these cities that have been erased. So today we are moving obviously from mitigation to adaptation and a bit of intimidation in the between, and as you have seen in COP30 lately, or in International Maritime Organization meetings in London, that they say, oh, don't talk about climate change no more. If you do, you will be banned. You will not be given a visa. You cannot come in. So we're getting into an environment that headwinds are there. But it's time as well to move from obfuscation to simulation. And technology and AI allows us to create these dashboards. Now here come the naysayers. Oh, national security. We don't need your battle plans. Your adversary already knows what your air carrier fuel consumption is. Everybody knows how many F-35s have flown or how many MiGs and Sukhois have been traveling and making sorties. Oh, it's national security, we cannot. But it's also a collective global humanities insecurity if you don't disclose and measure this. And at the age and time that AI and satellite imagery can come together, we can map out and simulate. And then the onus is on the governments and our leaders to come and say, no, you're wrong there, you're wrong here. Is it too uncertain? I doubt it. I think we could get a close proximate picture from Vietnam all the way till today, that what these biblical scenes that we see on our TVs mean in terms of emissions. And in all frankness, if satellites can see the plate number or size of a laptop in pixels today, they can tell you. And there are modules for tendering and building for architects of how much of carbon goes into building a city. Why can't we have it to say, hey, okay, there was a city. If we have to rebuild it today, what would be those emissions? We have to move beyond climate theater, in my opinion. Lately, BRICS established a laboratory which is for trade, climate change, and sustainability. There is no reason that today a laboratory like this cannot be developed in Global South for measuring these emissions and modeling and creating dashboards and simulations. And we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the Global South, whom we've been lecturing for decades about their emissions, yet we don't talk about our own emissions. But that doesn't work that way, right? The world is interconnected. There are tools that are being developed, and it's upon us for the future generations as well to bring about a transparent, clear picture and not dance in this climate theater and on stage. For the first time, the arsonist is in the room. We all know. We see it on our screens. We have the bill to send and to end the emissions exceptionalism. They say in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Let the AI, let our collective consciousness, let our satellite capacities and capabilities, and some of these, high-flying entrepreneurs who are claiming that the world is a better place for all of us, come together to assess, simulate, revelate, and compensate. This is not just compensate in terms of money, but also a clarity that we are in this together. I like to finish by sharing a story with all of you, which I learned and heard when I was 9 years old. One day, a logger, a lumberjack, goes to the forest. It's not his first time. Every time he goes, he opens his flask, his tea. That day, there was a bit of a wind and a breeze, and the wind started making the leaves to rustle. The lumberjack looked up and said, I'm here again once a week, and you're still afraid of me. Every time I come here, you guys shiver. I hear your sound. The old oak tree looked down and said, we hear you, we see you from far away when you walk into the forest. We're not afraid of your axe or the sharpness of its blade. We're always surprised and always ashamed that the handle of the axe is one of our own. Let us not be that handle. We have the tools. We are in one of the best universities in the United Kingdom. You all have the tools at your disposal and a conscience clearer than the skies in that photo. Let us stop and end the emissions exceptionalism. Thank you.